What's up, guys? This is Andy
and Mike
from the Honap project, and today we are going to be changing the oil on Mike's GSXR. So just to give you a heads up, if you have Impaktech like Mike does, you're probably going to have to take this off. So because the oil filter is located inside here underneath the exhaust manifold. I don't know if you guys can see that, but it's like right there, that big black thing right above that bar. So anyway, we're gonna have to take that out. So we're gonna get started and we'll come back to you guys. Alright, so we got the Impaktech off. It's very important not to lose your parts, right? So that's a good practice. You put it back where it came from, put the nut back on this one, put the bolt back in here.
Well, also remember too that the Impaktech connects to the motor mounting point, so you don't want to move your bike while you have those bolts out in case the motor does slip, and you need that small little engine jack underneath to brace the motor just in case it does want to fall out of there, which it really shouldn't. It hasn't on us the 5 times we've done this, but just in case.
All right, so we're gonna get cracking on pulling the rest of the fairings off so we can get access to the right there oil filter, and then we'll come back to you guys. All right, so we got the fairing, this side fairings off. So now next is getting access to this thing, the oil filter. So we're gonna be pulling that off after we drain out the oil from the oil plug, and then we will come back and show you how to put everything back together.
Yep.
Phil! Okay, so as any oil change that you do, anytime that you change out the oil filter, you always want to use some oil on the seal so that when you go to attach the filter to the vehicle, it gets that really good suction tight air seal. Some people prefer to use the new oil, some people prefer to use the old oil. Doesn't matter. I mean, generally I guess you'd want to use the new one, but in this case Mike don't care, so we're just gonna use the old one. And we're gonna go ahead and screw this back on there after we clean that up a little bit. Come on. There we go. Alright. Now with the oil filter, you don't want to use any kind of tool or anything when you're putting it back on, of course. As most of you already know. You want to make sure that you just do it hand tight and not any further than that. That way you're not over tightening it, you're not damaging the seal or anything like that. Just be careful because all this stuff down here is gonna be hot. All right, so we got the filter back in. That's hand tightened again, only hand tightened. You're not gonna use any kind of tool to tighten that up.
14.5 foot-pounds of torque for if you're using a oil filter wrench.
Yeah. If you're using an oil filter wrench, but if you don't have one, just hand tighten it. It's fine.
Actually, half a turn.
Half turn?
Yeah, half or quarter turn.
Quarter. I want to say quarter turn. Anyway. So the oil drain plug is 16.5, I believe. Right, Mike?
Yeah.
16.5 pounds of torque. So we're gonna, and hope to God we don't break it, because we're going off of what Mike told us. There we go. Done. All right, so the oil's in. Once again, please make sure that your engine mounts are good and tight before you start turning on the bike, because the last thing you want is to turn this thing on and the whole thing drops out. So it's always probably a good practice once you get everything back together underneath to go ahead and slide the jack back under the bike. And again, this is only if you have Impaktech. If you don't have Impaktech, you don't have to worry about all this stuff. So just make sure that everything is secure and supported when you start the motorcycle so you don't break anything. Alright guys, so we got everything back together. Impaktech's on, oil filter's on, drain plug's on, oil's in. So once Mike gets that tightened up, that's basically it. Done deal with the oil change. So now we're going to be moving on to replacing the spark plugs. So what that's going to entail is basically the spark plugs on this bike are underneath this tank. So we got to remove the tank, remove the cowl, so we can get at the intakes. The intake cover will come off, and then we'll be able to get access to the spark plugs. So we'll start doing that, and then we'll come back to you guys.
So here's where your spark plugs are going to be. 1, 2, 3, 4. I would do them one at a time so you don't mix these up. You don't want to mix these up because you're going to fuck up your firing if you do that and break your bike.
Alright, so the boot should just wiggle out.
Wiggle, wiggle, wiggle.
Yeah, so there.
Wiggle, wiggle, wiggle. Wiggle, wiggle, wiggle. Wiggle.
Here comes the boot. Take that out, put that on the side. Don't damage that. Don't take out any other ones. Don't do anything else until you replace that spark plug, because like Mike said, you do not want to get these things mixed up. This particular bike, you're gonna need an elbow and an extension to get in down in there to get to that spark plug. So I'd be prepared to get one of those ready for when you got to do this. Preferably don't use a 1/2 inch. You want to use a 3/8 because this stuff is just thick and bulky and very difficult to maneuver. So what I'm doing here is the spark plugs that Mike bought. Unfortunately, they have, well, not unfortunately, but they came with the cap. So as you can see, what I'm doing is I'm taking one of the wrenches that I have, depending on the size of spark plug that you have, just to hold it in place, taking a pair of pliers and twisting the cap right off of the spark plug. Now that's going to allow for Mike's boot to sit over the spark plug, because with that cap on, the boot will not go onto the cap of the spark plug. So that needs to be removed before you put it into the bike. There you go. Alright, so all of the boots have been reinstalled, all of the spark plugs been changed out, so we are ready to start putting back the AIRBOX. Alright, so you remember that long screwdriver we stuck in both sides of the motorcycle earlier on? That was to unscrew these clips. Now these clips are what help the AIRBOX to stay connected to the headers. Those rubber holes will slip over the headers, and then the clamps will clamp it down over the, just to keep it on. So what you're going to want to do is keep those on there, because it'll be a whole lot easier to put the AIRBOX back on. Once you start getting this back into the bike, you want to make sure that all dangling cords or whatever you took off before are not in the way. You also want to make sure that the air intakes are lined up with the holes inside the bike as best as possible. Now when you go to push this down onto the headers, just be careful. Don't use a lot of force. It doesn't take a lot of force. Just line it up as best as possible. Put on your hoses, put your hose back on, and push down very gently to slip it over. Once you get it on nice and snug, stick that screwdriver back in the holes on each side of the bike and tighten it up. Alright guys, everything's buttoned up, everything's good to go. Post any questions or comments you might have. We're more than happy to assist with any questions, best to our knowledge. Again, if you guys need us to show you something, or if you want us to see us do something, let us know. Put it in the comments below. Don't forget to subscribe.
Hona, brah.